The 1960s were a defining decade for American car design. The era saw the rise of muscle cars, pony cars, and luxury vehicles that showcased bold styling and innovative features. Yet not every design was a hit. Some cars suffered from poor proportions, structural issues, or uninspired aesthetics. These 9-car bodies from the 1960s stood out for all the wrong reasons, leaving a lasting impression as some of the worst designs of the decade.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 9, 1961 Imperial Crown Sedan, a car that serves as a fascinating case study in the intersection of luxury and excess. At a time when the automotive industry was beginning to embrace cleaner, more restrained designs, the Imperial Crown doubled down on the flamboyance of the 1950s to its detriment. Let's take a closer look at why this vehicle is often remembered as a misstep in design and execution. By 1961, the automotive landscape was shifting. The tail fin craze, popularized by models like the 1959 Cadillac, was waning. Consumers and designers alike were beginning to favor cleaner, more sophisticated lines that emphasized modernity over ornamentation. While some automakers adapted to these trends, the Imperial Crown Sedan stuck stubbornly to a vision of grandeur that was quickly falling out of favor. The 1961 Imperial was Chrysler's attempt to compete with Cadillac and Lincoln in the luxury market. However, instead of setting a new standard for refinement, it leaned heavily into the excesses of the previous decade. The result was a car that felt increasingly out of touch with the design sensibilities of the era. The most immediate and striking feature of the 1961 Imperial Crown Sedan was its enormous tail fins. While tail fins had been a symbol of automotive elegance and innovation in the 1950s, by 1961, they were rapidly losing their appeal. The Imperial's fins were not just large, they were exaggerated to the point of caricature. Rising sharply at the rear, they seemed to belong to an earlier time, making the car look outdated even as it rolled off the production line. Adding to this visual excess was the heavy use of chrome. From the grille to the bumpers and along the sides, chrome seemed to dominate every aspect of the car's exterior. Instead of projecting sophistication, this overuse of shiny trim came across as garish. Competitors like Lincoln, with its minimalist Continental design, demonstrated how restrained elegance could define luxury. In contrast, the Imperial Crown appeared bloated and ostentatious. The 1961 Imperial Crown Sedan was massive, even by the standards of American luxury cars. Its bloated dimensions made it cumbersome on the road and difficult to park. While size had long been associated with luxury, the Imperial's sheer bulk felt excessive rather than impressive. Inside, the car offered a spacious cabin, but the design and materials didn't match the opulence its exterior seemed to promise. Although the Imperial Crown was marketed as a top-tier luxury vehicle, its interior fell short of competitors in terms of both quality and style. Buyers looking for refinement found themselves underwhelmed, especially when comparing the car to Cadillac's offerings of the same year. One of the key challenges facing the 1961 Imperial Crown Sedan was its inability to strike a balance between luxury and restraint. Luxury, at its core, is about refinement, and by 1961, refinement meant clean lines, thoughtful proportions, and attention to detail. The Imperial's over-the-top styling choices signaled an identity crisis. It aimed to compete with Cadillac, but failed to understand that true luxury lies in subtlety, not excess. The car also suffered from being a niche product. Unlike Cadillac or Lincoln, Imperial never achieved the same level of brand prestige. Its insistence on outdated design elements alienated potential buyers, who increasingly saw the car as a relic of the past rather than a glimpse of the future. In conclusion, the 1961 Imperial Crown Sedan represents a moment when the automotive industry was transitioning and Imperial failed to keep up. Its exaggerated tail fins, bloated dimensions, and overuse of chrome reflected a bygone era of excess, rather than the emerging trend of modern sophistication. While the car offered some of the hallmarks of luxury, such as size and bold styling, it ultimately missed the mark by clinging to design cues that were rapidly falling out of favor. As a result, the The 1961 Imperial Crown sedan is often remembered not for its success, but for its inability to adapt to the changing tastes of the era. Number 8, 1960 Ford Falcon sedan, a car that prioritized function over form, but in doing so, fell short of making a lasting impression. While the Falcon was designed to address the practical needs of budget-conscious buyers, its uninspired styling and lack of visual flair left it struggling to stand out in a competitive market. The 1960s marked a turning point in American automotive history. In response to the growing popularity of imported compact cars like the Volkswagen Beetle, American manufacturers began developing smaller, more economical vehicles. Ford introduced the Falcon as its entry into the compact market. The goal was to provide an affordable, practical car that could compete with imports while appealing to middle-class families. On paper, the Falcon met its objectives. It was lightweight, fuel-efficient, and offered a straightforward driving experience. However, the design choices made to achieve this practicality resulted in a car that was undeniably functional, but unfortunately also bland and uninspired. The most significant criticism of the 1960 Ford Falcon sedan was its slab-sided, boxy design. At a time when automotive styling was evolving to include more curves, contours, and visual drama, the Falcon felt stuck in the past. Its flat panels, simple lines, and minimal ornamentation gave it a utilitarian appearance that lacked personality. While these design choices may have helped keep production costs low, they also made the car look cheap, an impression that did not help its appeal. Compared to its competitors, such as the Chevrolet Corvair with its innovative rear-engine layout and sleek design, or the Plymouth Valiant with its unique and quirky styling, the Falcon appeared conservative and unimaginative. Even in its advertising, Ford focused on the car's practicality rather than its aesthetic appeal, reinforcing the idea that the Falcon was a sensible choice, but not an exciting one. The 1960 Falcon was powered by a modest 2.4-liter inline-six engine that produced just 90 horsepower. While this engine was adequate for city driving and light cruising, it offered little in the way of performance. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car struggled to provide a dynamic driving experience. This lack of excitement further solidified the Falcon's reputation as a budget car rather than an aspirational purchase. Inside, the Falcon was functional but Spartan. The interior materials were basic, and the dashboard design lacked the sophistication or flair found in competing models. While the simplicity may have appealed to some buyers, it failed to inspire enthusiasm or foster a sense of pride in ownership. One of the Falcon's biggest challenges was its inability to adapt to the evolving tastes of consumers. By 1960, buyers were beginning to expect more than just practicality from their vehicles. They wanted style, innovation, and a sense of identity. The Falcon's no-frills design philosophy made it seem out of touch with these changing expectations. Additionally, the rise of imports like the Volkswagen Beetle highlighted the importance of charm and character in small cars. The Beetle's rounded shape and distinctive personality helped it stand out, while the Falcon's generic design did little to differentiate it from other low-cost options in the market. In conclusion, the 1960 Ford Falcon sedan is a classic example of a car that succeeded in being functional but failed to inspire. Its slab-sided, boxy design prioritized practicality over visual appeal, resulting in a car that felt dull and uninspired. While the Falcon served its purpose as an affordable, economical vehicle, it struggled to compete with more stylish and innovative offerings from both domestic and foreign competitors. The Falcon story reminds us of the importance of balance in automotive design. Practicality is crucial, but it must be paired with an emotional connection that captures the imagination of buyers. Without this balance, even a well-engineered car can struggle to find its place in a competitive market. Number 7, 1962. Plymouth Valiant, a car that dared to be different but ended up alienating buyers with its quirky and polarizing design. While the Valiant had its strengths in terms of practicality and innovation, its styling choices were a textbook example of how excessive design complexity can backfire. The early 1960s were a transformative period in the American auto industry. Compact cars were rapidly gaining popularity, as consumers sought more economical and practical alternatives to the large gas-guzzling sedans that had dominated the 1950s. Plymouth introduced the Valiant in 1960 as its entry into this growing segment, positioning it as an affordable and innovative option for budget-conscious buyers. Mechanically, the Valiant had a lot going for it. It featured a reliable slant-six engine, which was praised for its durability and efficiency. It also offered reasonable interior space and comfort for its size. However, these positives were overshadowed by a polarizing design that made the car more of an oddity than an object of desire. The 1962 Plymouth Valiant's most glaring issue was its appearance. Rather than embracing the clean, modern lines that were becoming the hallmark of automotive design at the time, the Valiant leaned heavily into exaggerated and overly ornate styling. The result was a car that looked more like a cartoon caricature than a sleek, sophisticated vehicle. Let's start with the fenders. The Valiant's rounded, bulging fenders gave the car an awkward and bloated appearance, as if it were puffed up or trying too hard to stand out. This was a stark contrast to competitors like the Ford Falcon or Chevrolet Corvair, which were opting for simpler, more streamlined shapes. Instead of appearing modern, the Valiant's fenders made it look dated and awkward. The grille only added to the problem. It featured a complex split design with a chrome tooth centerpiece that seemed more ornamental than functional. This grille design drew criticism for being fussy and overworked, creating visual clutter instead of the understated elegance buyers were starting to expect. One of the most important aspects of car design is the balance of proportions. Unfortunately, the 1962 Valiant lacked this balance. The combination of its oversized fenders, narrow stance, and awkward grille made the car feel visually top-heavy and ungainly. These design flaws weren't just unappealing, they actively detracted from the car's overall aesthetic coherence. In an era when buyers were beginning to gravitate toward cars with clean, cohesive lines, the Valiant's chaotic design felt like a relic of a bygone era. It lacked the modernity of vehicles like the Chevrolet Corvair, which offered a sleek, forward-thinking silhouette, or even the Volkswagen Beetle, whose simple and iconic shape had universal appeal. The tragedy of the 1962 Plymouth Valiant is that it wasn't a bad car mechanically. Its slant-six engine, for example, was robust and efficient, and it offered better fuel economy than many of its competitors. But these practical benefits were undermined by a design that failed to resonate with buyers. Style plays a critical role in a car's success, particularly in a competitive market, and the Valiant's quirky appearance made it a tough sell. Plymouth's gamble to create a distinct identity for the Valiant ultimately backfired. Instead of being seen as innovative or bold, it was often ridiculed for its eccentricity. Buyers looking for compact cars wanted efficiency and practicality, but they also wanted something they could be proud to drive. The Valiant didn't offer that emotional connection. In conclusion, the 1962 Plymouth Valiant is a case study in how excessive design complexity can undermine an otherwise solid vehicle. Its exaggerated fenders and overly ornate grille gave it a cartoonish appearance that failed to align with the sleek, modern aesthetic buyers were looking for in the early 1960s. While the Valiant was functional and innovative in many respects, its polarizing design ultimately limited its appeal. This story reminds us that even in the pursuit of uniqueness, balance, and restraint are crucial. A car's design should complement its functionality and resonate with its target audience, not alienate them with unnecessary ornamentation. Number 6, 1967, Chevrolet Chevelle 300, a car that represented the entry-level option in Chevrolet's popular Chevelle lineup. While the Chevelle name is often associated with powerful muscle cars and sleek styling, the 300 trim, unfortunately, failed to live up to these expectations. Instead, it suffered from plain, uninspired bodywork and a lack of personality that left it overshadowed by its siblings. In the 1960s, the Chevrolet Chevelle became one of the most well-known mid-size cars in America, offering a mix of affordability, versatility, and performance. Positioned between the compact Chevy 2 and the full-size Impala, the Chevelle was available in a variety of trims and configurations to appeal to a broad audience. The Chevelle lineup included everything from the high-performance Super Sport SS models, known for their aggressive styling and powerful engines, to the entry-level Chevelle 300, which was aimed at budget-conscious buyers. While the 300 trim was meant to provide a no-frills, economical option, its bland design and lack of character left much to be desired. The most significant issue with the 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle 300 was its design. Unlike the higher trims, which featured detailed chrome accents, bold grills, and sporty proportions, the 300 trim was stripped of these embellishments. Its flat surfaces and minimal detailing gave it a utilitarian appearance, making it feel more like a fleet car than a desirable midsize sedan. One of the most glaring problems was the lack of definition in its bodywork. The sides of the car were flat and featureless, with little in the way of character lines or sculpting to add visual interest. This simplicity made the car look dated even by 1967 standards, especially when compared to competitors like the Ford Fairlane or Plymouth Belvedere, which had more dynamic and modern styling. The front fascia was equally uninspired. The grille design was plain and lacked the boldness of the Chevelle Malibu or SS trims. The headlights and grille seemed almost apologetically small, further diminishing the car's road presence. From a distance, the Chevelle 300 could easily be mistaken for a generic entry-level sedan, a far cry from the sporty image Chevrolet wanted the Chevelle name to evoke. Another issue was the Chevelle 300's proportions. While the Chevelle platform itself was well regarded for its balance of size and functionality, the 300 trim failed to capitalize on this. The lack of styling details made the car feel blocky and unrefined. The sedan configuration, in particular, highlighted the car's awkward stance and made it appear bulkier than it actually was. This lack of personality was especially problematic in the 1960s, a decade when car buyers were increasingly drawn to vehicles with flair and individuality. Even in the economy car segment, brands were finding ways to inject personality into their designs, whether through unique styling elements or distinctive proportions. The Chevelle 300, by contrast, felt like an afterthought. Under the hood, the Chevelle 300 offered a range of engine options, starting with a basic inline-six. While these engines were adequate for daily driving, they lacked the excitement and power that buyers associated with the Chevelle name. The higher performance V8 engines were available, but often found in the more expensive trims, leaving the 300 trim with a reputation for mediocrity. Additionally, the Chevelle 300's base suspension setup and stripped-down interior made it clear that this was a car built for budget buyers, not enthusiasts. While practicality and affordability were the focus, the lack of driving excitement further diminished its appeal. The 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle 300 also faced tough competition. Rivals like the Ford Fairlane and Plymouth Belvedere offered more appealing base models with better styling and similar practicality. Even within Chevrolet's own lineup, the Malibu trim presented a more attractive option for buyers willing to spend a little more. This competition highlighted the Chevelle 300's weaknesses. In a market where buyers were increasingly looking for style, performance, and value, the 300 trim's bland design and utilitarian features made it feel like a compromise rather than a compelling choice. In conclusion, the 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle 300 was a car that failed to capture the spirit of its nameplate. Its plain, uninspired bodywork and lack of visual or mechanical excitement made it forgettable in a crowded market. While it served its purpose as an affordable entry-level option, it lacked the personality and polish to stand out among its peers. The Chevelle 300 serves as a reminder that even economy cars need to offer something distinctive to succeed, whether it's bold styling, innovative. Number 5, 1964 Dodge Dart Wagon, a vehicle that stood as a practical family hauler, but fell short in the areas of design and appeal. While the Dart lineup of the 1960s enjoyed popularity as reliable, budget-friendly cars, the wagon variant struggled with awkward proportions and uninspired styling that made it more utilitarian than desirable. The Dodge Dart was introduced as a compact car aimed at economy-minded buyers. By 1964, The Dart had undergone significant improvements in terms of engineering and performance, earning a reputation for its rugged durability and efficient engines. This made it a sensible choice for families, especially those seeking affordability. However, the Dart wagon, specifically, highlighted the limitations of compact car styling when stretched to accommodate utility. While it was practical and served its purpose as a family vehicle, its design failed to resonate with buyers who wanted more than basic transportation. The 1964 Dart wagon's most glaring issue was its awkward design. Unlike some of its competitors that managed to balance utility with attractive styling, the Dart wagon prioritized function at the expense of form. The upright stance, boxy profile, and overly simplistic lines gave it a clunky, unrefined appearance. Let's start with the proportions. The wagon's high roofline and narrow body created an unbalanced silhouette that made the vehicle look top-heavy. The upright rear section, designed to maximize cargo space, appeared almost as an afterthought, tacked on without consideration for overall flow or harmony. This made the car feel less like a cohesive design and more like a utilitarian box on wheels. The front end was no better. The simple grille and minimal chrome detailing lacked personality, giving the Dart wagon a plain and anonymous look. In a market where competitors like the Chevrolet Nova wagon or Ford Falcon wagon offered more polished and cohesive designs, the Dart wagon felt utilitarian to a fault. While simplicity can sometimes be an asset in car design, the 1964 Dart wagon took it to an extreme. The boxy lines and flat surfaces lacked the sculpting or detailing needed to make the car visually interesting. Instead of appearing modern or sleek, the design felt dated and uninspired, even by the standards of the mid-1960s. This lack of flair was especially problematic in the compact wagon segment, where buyers were beginning to expect vehicles that combined practicality with style. Families wanted cars that were not only functional, but also something they could take pride in owning. The Dart wagon's overly utilitarian appearance failed to meet this expectation. Moving inside, the Dart wagon offered a practical but basic interior. While it was spacious and functional, particularly in the cargo area, it lacked the comfort and refinement of many competitors. The materials were plain, and the overall design of the dashboard and seating was uninspired. While this simplicity helped keep costs down, it also reinforced the perception of the Dart wagon as a no-frills option. Mechanically, the 1964 Dart wagon was solid, featuring Dodge's dependable slant-six engine. While this engine was praised for its reliability and efficiency, it didn't do much to elevate the driving experience. The wagon's added weight further diminished performance, making acceleration sluggish and handling less nimble than its sedan counterparts. In an era when automakers were starting to introduce wagons with more powerful engines and sportier handling, the Dart wagon's basic drivetrain made it feel outdated and uncompetitive. The 1964 Dodge Dart wagon also faced stiff competition. Rivals like the Chevrolet Nova wagon and Ford Falcon wagon managed to offer similar levels of practicality while delivering more polished designs. Even within Chrysler's own lineup, models like the Plymouth Valiant presented buyers with more attractive alternatives. These competitors demonstrated that compact wagons didn't have to sacrifice style for utility, leaving the Dart wagon to languish as a less desirable choice in a crowded market. In conclusion, the 1964 Dodge Dart wagon was a practical vehicle that served its purpose as a family hauler, but failed to inspire with its design. Its upright stance, awkward proportions, and overly simple lines made it look clunky and unrefined, while its plain interior and unremarkable performance reinforced its utilitarian image. The Dart wagon serves as a reminder that even practical vehicles need to balance form and function. Buyers in the 1960s, particularly in the growing compact segment, were looking for cars that combined utility with style and personality. The 1964 Dodge Dart wagon, unfortunately, leaned too heavily toward practico. Number 4, 1963 Rambler Ambassador 990, a car from American Motors Corporation, AMC, that aimed to blend luxury and practicality, but struggled to execute either effectively. While AMC was known for producing reliable and economical vehicles, the Ambassador 990's attempt at a more upscale offering missed the mark. suffering from a bloated and boxy design that lacked the elegance and appeal needed to compete in the growing market for mid-size luxury sedans. In the early 1960s, AMC was striving to carve out a niche in a competitive automotive market dominated by the Big Three: Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. AMC's strategy revolved around producing smaller, more efficient vehicles that appealed to budget-conscious buyers. However, the company also recognized the potential for offering more luxurious models to attract wealthier customers. The Ambassador series, and particularly the top-tier 990 trim, represented AMC's attempt to compete in the mid-size luxury segment. On paper, this was a promising idea, combining the practicality and economy of a Rambler with the premium features of a luxury car. Unfortunately, the execution fell flat, particularly in the case of the 1963 model year. The most immediate issue with the 1963 Rambler Ambassador 990 was its design. At first glance, the car's bloated and boxy proportions gave it a cumbersome and awkward appearance. While competitors like the Ford Galaxy and Chevrolet Impala were embracing sleeker, more aerodynamic designs, the Ambassador retained a flat, upright stance that made it feel dated. The flat roofline was one of the most criticized aspects of the design. While it may have added interior headroom, it sacrificed any sense of grace or sophistication. Instead of flowing lines that transitioned smoothly from the roof to the rear, the Ambassador's roofline felt abrupt and unrefined. This contributed to an overall lack of visual harmony, making the car appear top-heavy and awkward. The oversized grille was another misstep. While large grilles can convey luxury and presence when executed correctly, the Ambassador's grille came across as clunky and overly simplistic. Its rectangular shape dominated the front fascia, creating an almost cartoonish expression that failed to convey the refinement AMC was aiming for. Additionally, the car's side profile lacked detailing or character lines to break up the monotony of its flat surfaces. This simplicity, while consistent with AMC's practical ethos, made the Ambassador feel uninspired compared to more stylish rivals. The Ambassador 990 was marketed as a luxurious yet practical vehicle, but this dual identity created tension. On the luxury side, AMC equipped the car with upscale features such as a premium interior, more powerful engine options, and higher quality materials. However, these efforts were undermined by the car's uninspired exterior and overall lack of sophistication. On the practicality side, the Ambassador inherited AMC's reputation for reliability and efficiency. It offered decent interior space and good fuel economy for its size, making it a sensible choice for families. However, buyers in the luxury segment weren't looking for sensible alone. They wanted flair, status, and elegance, which the Ambassador 990 failed to deliver. Under the hood, the 1963 Rambler Ambassador 990 featured a choice of engines, including a 327 cubic inch V8. While this provided respectable power, it wasn't enough to offset the car's hefty weight and uninspired handling. The Ambassador's performance was adequate but unremarkable, falling short of the excitement offered by competitors in the same class. The 1963 Rambler Ambassador 990 faced stiff competition from the likes of the Ford Galaxy, Chevrolet Impala, and Plymouth Fury, all of which were more stylish and better executed in their respective niches. These competitors understood that luxury buyers were willing to pay a premium not just for features, but also for design and brand prestige. The Ambassador, by contrast, came across as a compromise, a car that tried to do too much and ultimately did too little to distinguish itself. Its practical roots clashed with its luxury aspirations, leaving it in an awkward middle ground that didn't fully satisfy either set of buyers. The 1963 Rambler Ambassador 990 serves as an example of how important cohesive design and market positioning are in the automotive industry. While AMC's attempt to create a luxury car with practical sensibilities was commendable, the execution fell short due to awkward styling and a lack of refinement. In hindsight, the Ambassador's missteps highlight the challenges of blending two distinct market identities. Luxury buyers expect elegance and sophistication, while practicality often calls for simplicity and restraint. Number 3, 1968 Mercury Montego MX, a mid-size car from Ford's Mercury division that aimed to bring style and refinement to a competitive market. Unfortunately, the Montego MX fell short in its quest to stand out, suffering from bland styling and awkward proportions that made it more forgettable than appealing. By the late 1960s, Mercury positioned itself as a premium alternative to Ford, targeting buyers who wanted more sophistication and style without stepping into Lincoln's luxury territory. The Montego series was introduced in 1968 as Mercury's new midsize offering, replacing the Comet. It was designed to compete with cars like the Chevrolet Chevelle, Pontiac Le Mans, and Dodge Coronet. The Montego MX was the more upscale trim, intended to appeal to buyers seeking a blend of comfort and style. However, in a crowded market filled with bold, dynamic designs, the Montego MX's lack of personality became its downfall. The most glaring issue with the 1968 Montego MX was its styling. While Mercury intended to give the car a refined and upscale appearance, the result was a design that felt bland and uninspired. The proportions were the first problem. The Montego MX featured a long, stretch body with an extended wheelbase, but instead of exuding elegance, this design choice made the car look awkward and unbalanced. The elongated hood and rear overhangs created the impression of a car that was trying too hard to appear grand without the design elements to support it. The wide, flat front end was another major misstep. The grille design was simplistic with minimal detailing, and the rectangular headlights lacked flair. This front fascia lacked the boldness or distinctiveness needed to make the Montego MX stand out. Compared to competitors like the Pontiac Le Mans, which boasted sporty, aggressive styling, the Montego MX's face was generic and forgettable. The side profile didn't help either. With flat, featureless panels and minimal sculpting, the Montego MX's design felt lazy and uninspired. Mercury's designers seemed to have played it safe, but in doing so, they sacrificed the character and dynamism that buyers expected in the late 1960s. Inside, the Montego MX fared slightly better. It offered a reasonably comfortable interior with decent materials and optional features like wood grain trim and upgraded upholstery. However, the interior design was conservative and didn't match the excitement offered by competitors in the same price range. Practicality was a plus, with ample passenger and trunk space, but these qualities weren't enough to overcome the car's dull exterior. Under the hood, the Montego MX offered a range of engine options, from a base inline-six to V8s with decent power. While these engines provided adequate performance, they didn't deliver the excitement or sporty feel that some competitors offered. The Montego MX's handling was another weak point. Its stretched proportions and heavy weight resulted in sluggish performance on the road. It lacked the nimbleness and responsiveness that buyers in the midsize segment were starting to expect, particularly from models marketed as upscale or sporty. The midsize segment in 1968 was highly competitive, with many manufacturers offering vehicles that combined striking designs, strong performance, and innovative features. The Chevrolet Chevelle, for example, offered a sporty, aggressive look and a variety of powerful engines. The Dodge Coronet and Plymouth Satellite also provided bold styling and muscular performance options. In this context, the Montego MX failed to carve out a distinctive niche. Its design lacked the boldness to compete with sportier rivals, and its performance didn't stand out enough to appeal to enthusiasts. Even within Ford's own lineup, the Ford Torino offered a more cohesive and appealing package. The 1968 Mercury Montego MX serves as a cautionary tale about the risks of playing it too safe in automotive design. While Mercury aimed to create a refined and upscale midsize car, they missed the opportunity to imbue the Montego MX with the personality and flair needed to stand out in a crowded market. This model highlights the importance of balancing refinement with distinctiveness. In the late 1960s, buyers wanted cars that made a statement, whether through bold styling, thrilling performance, or innovative features. The Montego MX's bland design and average performance left it overshadowed by competitors that better understood these desires. In conclusion, the 1968 Mercury Montego MX was a car that struggled to find its identity. Its bland styling, awkward proportions, and lack of standout features made it a forgettable entry in the competitive midsize segment. Number 2, 1965 Studebaker Wagoneer, a car that showcased innovation but struggled to make a lasting impression due to design missteps. While its sliding roof was a groundbreaking feature, its awkward proportions and utilitarian appearance undermined its appeal as a family-friendly vehicle. In the early 1960s, Studebaker was facing significant financial challenges and needed a unique product to stand out in a competitive market. Enter the Wagoneer, a station wagon with an innovative sliding rear roof panel. This feature allowed owners to transport tall items like refrigerators or furniture, bridging the gap between a traditional station wagon and a pickup truck. On paper, the Wagoneer was a clever idea. It promised versatility and practicality for families or small businesses, a potential game changer in the station wagon segment. However, execution is everything in the auto industry, and the Wagoneer fell short in critical areas. One of the biggest issues with the 1965 Wagoneer was its design. Instead of embodying the sleek, suburban-friendly style that station wagon buyers wanted, the Wagoneer came across as awkward and utilitarian. The tall, boxy roofline was the first major flaw. While necessary to accommodate the sliding roof mechanism, it gave the car an ungainly, top-heavy appearance. From the side profile, the roof seemed disproportionate to the rest of the body, making the car look more like a commercial delivery vehicle than a stylish family car. The rear end was another problem. With its abrupt, squared-off lines, the Wagoneer's back half lacked visual harmony. The designers seemed more focused on functionality than aesthetics, resulting in a boxy, uninspired rear that clashed with the rest of the vehicle. Compared to other station wagons of the time, such as the Chevrolet Impala wagon or Ford Country Squire, the Wagoneer looked plain and industrial. Those competitors managed to combine practicality with style, something the Wagoneer could not achieve. Inside, the Wagoneer offered decent passenger space in a functional layout, but it lacked the refinement and comfort buyers expected. Materials were basic, reflecting Studebaker's cost-cutting measures during its final years. The sliding roof, while innovative, introduced its own set of problems. It required precise sealing to prevent water leaks, but many owners reported issues with leaks and wind noise. Additionally, the mechanism was prone to wear and required regular maintenance to function properly. While the concept of an open-top station wagon was intriguing, it didn't resonate with most families. Buyers who needed a versatile vehicle often opted for a pickup truck, which offered better durability and cargo capacity. Meanwhile, families looking for a stylish and comfortable wagon were turned off by the Wagoneer's utilitarian vibe. Under the hood, the 1965 Wagoneer came with a choice of inline-6 or V8 engines. While the V8 provided adequate power, the Wagoneer's tall profile and boxy shape made it less aerodynamic, impacting performance and fuel efficiency. Handling was another weak point. The Wagoneer's high center of gravity made it feel unstable during cornering, further emphasizing its utilitarian rather than family-friendly nature. In an era when American cars were starting to emphasize smoother rides and better road manners, the Wagoneer felt outdated. The 1965 Wagoneer faced stiff competition in the station wagon segment. Rivals like the Ford Country Squire, Chevrolet Impala wagon, and Plymouth Fury wagon combined sleek styling with family-focused practicality, capturing the hearts of suburban buyers. These competitors also benefited from the backing of larger automakers with more resources for marketing and development. In contrast, Studebaker was struggling to stay afloat, and the Wagoneer reflected the company's limitations. The 1965 Studebaker Wagoneer represents a bold idea that was poorly executed. Its sliding roof was an innovative feature, but the car's awkward design and quality issues overshadowed its practicality. Studebaker's demise in the mid-60s meant the Wagoneer was one of the company's final attempts to remain relevant. While it has gained a niche following among collectors for its quirkiness, the Wagoneer is remembered more for its flaws than its innovation. This model teaches us an important lesson. Innovation alone is not enough. A successful car must balance functionality, style, and reliability to meet the needs and desires of its target audience. The Wagoneer's failure to achieve this balance is why it struggled to make a lasting impact. In conclusion, The 1965 Studebaker Wagoneer was a car with potential that fell short due to its ungainly design and practical shortcomings. While it's admirable for its creativity, it serves as a reminder that good ideas must be paired with thoughtful execution to succeed in the competitive automotive world. Number 1, 1966 Chrysler Newport, a car that seemed to epitomize the phrase, "Bigger isn't always better." This full-size sedan was intended to showcase Chrysler's reach in the American market, but instead it came across as a missed opportunity. While the Newport offered size and presence, its uninspired design and lack of refinement left it struggling to stand out in a crowded field of more stylish and better executed competitors. By 1966, the American automotive industry was at a crossroads. The muscle car era was taking off, and styling had become more important than ever. Chrysler, however, seemed out of step with these trends when it introduced the 1966 Newport. The Newport was positioned as an entry-level luxury car, intended to bridge the gap between Chrysler's upscale models and the more affordable Dodge and Plymouth brands. Despite this intent, the Newport failed to achieve the style, sophistication, or innovation that its market placement demanded. Let's start with the Newport's styling, which was perhaps its greatest weakness. The 1966 Newport featured a massive slab-sided body that lacked any real detail or elegance. Its long, flat panels gave it a heavy, uninspired appearance, almost as though the designers had run out of ideas and opted for simplicity over sophistication. The grille and front fascia were plain to the point of being forgettable. While other cars of the time, like the Ford Galaxy 500 or Chevrolet Impala, featured bold chrome accents and intricate grille designs, the Newport's front end lacked the flair needed to grab attention. From the side, the Newport's proportions felt overly stretched. The lack of sculpting or character lines made the car appear bloated, an impression exacerbated by its significant size. Chrysler seemed to prioritize size over style, but in a market where sleek, dynamic designs were gaining traction, this approach left the Newport looking dated and unremarkable. One area where the Newport did offer some appeal was its interior, which was undeniably roomy. With its full-size dimensions, the Newport provided ample space for passengers, making it a practical choice for families or buyers who prioritize comfort. However, this spaciousness came at the cost of refinement. The materials used in the interior were subpar for a car marketed as a near-luxury vehicle. Vinyl seats and uninspired dashboard designs failed to create the sense of elegance or exclusivity that buyers might have expected. Competitors like the Oldsmobile 88 or Mercury Monterey offered interiors with more style and higher quality materials, leaving the Newport feeling second-rate. Under the hood, the Newport offered a range of engines, from a base straight-six to larger V8s, including a 383 cubic inch option. While these engines delivered adequate power, the Newport's sheer weight hampered its performance. The car's heavy body made acceleration sluggish, especially with the base engine. Even the larger V8s struggled to deliver a sense of agility, as the Newport's size and weight worked against any attempt at spirited driving. Handling was another weak point. The Newport suspension prioritized ride comfort over precision, resulting in a boat-like driving experience that lacked the road manners of its rivals. Fuel efficiency, as expected for a car of this size, was poor. At a time when buyers were beginning to consider economy alongside power, the Newport's thirst for fuel made it less appealing. The Newport's issues become even more apparent when compared to its contemporaries. The Chevrolet Impala, for example, managed to combine style, performance, and affordability in a way that resonated with buyers. Meanwhile, the Ford Galaxy offered a more modern and dynamic design that appealed to a wide audience. Even within Chrysler's own lineup, the Newport struggled to justify its position. Buyers looking for luxury could move up to the New Yorker, while those seeking value could opt for a Dodge or Plymouth. The Newport, stuck in the middle, didn't offer enough to differentiate itself. The 1966 Chrysler Newport is a prime example of how size and practicality alone aren't enough to make a car successful. In a market increasingly driven by style and innovation, the Newport's uninspired design and lackluster performance left it behind. For Chrysler, the Newport highlighted the risks of playing it safe. While the car wasn't a total failure, it sold reasonably well thanks to its practicality. It failed to make a lasting impression. It was a car that buyers purchased out of necessity rather than desire, a critical misstep in an era where cars were increasingly seen as reflections of personal style and aspirations. In conclusion, the 1966 Chrysler Newport represents a missed opportunity. Its massive size and uninspired design made it feel outdated and out of step with the trends of the time. While it offered some practicality, its lack of flair and refinement ultimately limited its appeal.